So, picture an Afghan hound. You are, like, almost certainly imagining a dog just draped elegantly across this velvet couch, right? With that long, flowing, silky hair that looks like it totally belongs in a high-end shampoo commercial.
Oh, absolutely. It's the ultimate show dog image.
Yeah, exactly. High maintenance, decorative, maybe even, a little precious, just a luxury fashion accessory in canine form. But today, for this deep dive, we are taking a stack of really comprehensive breed analyses, historical records, and behavioral breakdowns to completely deconstruct that image.
Because what we found in these sources, I mean, it completely flips the script.
It really does. We're going to peel back all that glamour to reveal what is actually sitting on that velvet couch, which is this rugged, fiercely independent, high-speed mountain hunter.
Yeah, it really is one of the most misunderstood animals in the modern world, I think, because the elegance that the Afghan Hound is known for globally today, it isn't actually the point of the dog at all. That famous beauty is merely a byproduct of, like, extreme utility in a remarkably unforgiving environment. I mean, it didn't get useful because it was beautiful. It got beautiful because it was engineered to survive and hunt for thousands of years in a landscape that would just break almost any other breed.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to understand the modern dog walking down a paved suburban sidewalk, we really have to travel back thousands of years. Our sources point us to the high country plateaus between Afghanistan and the mountain ranges stretching toward the old Silk Road. So paint a picture of what that environment actually demands from an animal.
Well, you have to imagine a landscape that is just actively hostile to life. Like, picture stepping out just before dawn. The elevation is incredibly high, so the air is super thin, and the cold is bitter and piercing.
Just freaking...
Exactly. And the terrain isn't, soft dirt or grass. It is jagged rock, deep ravines, and towering inclines. The vegetation is really sparse, mostly just tough scrub. And the climate is brutal. I mean, temperatures swing violently from sub-zero freezing nights to just blistering, relentless heat under the daytime sun.
See, if I try to picture a dog hunting in that kind of environment, my brain immediately goes to, like, a bloodhound sniffing the ground, tracking a scent. But how does that even work on freezing dry rock?
Well, it doesn't. Scent tracking relies on moisture, to hold the smell of the prey in the soil or the vegetation.
All right.
So in an arid, rocky, high-altitude plateau, a scent trail just evaporates or gets whipped away by the wind almost instantly. You literally cannot track a meal by nose up there. And more importantly, the prey in this region, so hares, gazelles, sometimes even snow leopards.
Wait, snow leopards?
Yeah, even snow leopards. They are visible across these vast open expanses. You can see them from half a mile away, and they are incredibly fast.
So you don't need a slow, methodical tracker. You need something that can close a half-mile gap in seconds.
Exactly the opposite of a scent hound. You need a sighthound. And the Afghan hound belongs to this ancient, specialized family of dogs sitting alongside the greyhound and the saluki. Their entire genetic blueprint is built around just supreme visual acuity and explosive speed.
Just raw speed.
Yeah, they're designed to scan the horizon, spot movement at massive distances, and commit instantly to a full-blown sprint before the prey can just vanish over the next ridge.
I was reading the breakdown of how they actually execute this hunt, and honestly, the mechanics are mind-blowing. Like, if you are a nomadic hunter on foot in these mountains, you obviously cannot keep up with a gazelle.
No, definitely not.
And you definitely cannot keep up with your dog chasing that gazelle. The dog is just out there working completely alone.
And that isolation is the key to understanding their entire psychology. When a hare breaks from cover on a slope half a mile away, the Afghan hound's head snaps up and it launches. At that moment, the human hunter is entirely irrelevant.
They're just gone.
Exactly. The dog doesn't look back for permission. It doesn't wait for a command. It is independently reading the terrain, clocking the trajectory of the prey, and calculating its intercept path at, like, 40 miles an hour.
One of the historical notes actually mentioned them navigating scree slopes at full speed. Wait, scree slopes, you mean those steep inclines covered in loose, sliding rock?
Yes, exactly those.
So they're navigating what is essentially a constant miniature landslide while sprinting.
Yeah, I mean, running at 40 miles an hour down a shifting slip of loose rock requires a biological supercomputer. The dog is making these split-second life-or-death physical calculations. One wrong foot placement, one misjudged angle, and they break a leg.
Which out there means death.
Right, which in that environment is a death sentence. So they are utilizing absolute spatial awareness and just immense physical dexterity, and they are doing it entirely on their own judgment.
It kind of makes me think of how we interact with modern technology. Like if a golden retriever or a traditional herding dog is like a remote-controlled car,
Oh, that's a good comparison.
where it's constantly looking back to the driver for steering input, waiting for the next button press. The Afghan Hound is an autonomous drone. You launch it, and it calculates the flight path completely by itself. It literally does not want your input while it's in the air.
That analogy hits the nail on the head. I mean, the ancestral job description is basically see the target, chase it, bring it down, and use your own judgment to survive the terrain because there is no human running alongside you to help.
But if they have this incredibly complex autonomous supercomputer of a brain, why do they have such a massive reputation for being untrainable? People bring this dog into their living rooms, expect the reflexive obedience of, like, a Labrador, and then they just hit a brick wall.
Because modern owners are applying a deeply flawed definition of what makes a dog good or smart. The most common frustration owner's voice goes something like this. My dog is a genius indoors. They learn tricks in 5 minutes. But the second we step outside and there's a squirrel in the distance, they completely ignore me. They act like I don't exist.
And people immediately label that as stubbornness or spite.
Mm.
Or they just assume the dog is actually kind of dumb outside.
Yeah, and we have to completely reframe that behavior. When an Afghan hound ignores an owner to stare down a squirrel 3 blocks away, it is not being disobedient. That is the mountain blueprint overriding the suburban environment.
Oh, wow.
The dog just did exactly what human beings spent millennia selectively breeding it to do. It detected movement, made an independent judgment call, and prioritized the environment over the human standing 3 feet away holding a piece of cheese.
Hold on. So what does this mean for the owner listening to this? Do they just give the dog a free pass for blowing off commands? Like if I take this ancient mountain hunter to a standard obedience class in a church basement, what actually happens?
Well, a standard obedience class will be an exercise in profound mutual frustration. If you try to force an Afghan hound to just repeat sit, stay, heel 50 times in a row, they will simply check out.
They just get bored.
Completely. Repetition and drill-based correction bore them to tears. You are dealing with an animal whose brain is wired to calculate high-speed intercepts on jagged rock. Sitting on a linoleum floor for the 30th time offers zero intellectual stimulation. You are just never going to out-argue thousands of years of hardwired independence with a choke collar.
So how do you actually train a dog that doesn't inherently care about pleasing you?
You have to pivot to relationship-based training. You know, intelligence for this breed isn't reflexive obedience, it is problem-solving and environmental awareness. So to train them, you have to build genuine, deep trust. You basically have to convince the dog that collaborating with you is actually worth their time and energy.
That sounds intense.
It is. It requires immense patience, finding highly specific motivations, and treating the relationship as a partnership rather than a dictatorship.
Okay, so we have an animal whose brain has been shaped by freezing, unforgiving rock to act as an autonomous missile. How does an environment that harsh produce a physical coat that looks like it belongs on a fashion runway? Because when I look at all that flowing, silky hair, it doesn't look like survival gear. It looks like a huge liability.
It looks completely counterintuitive, right? Until you put it back into the context of the high plateaus. That incredibly long, dense coat provides vital, life-saving insulation. Remember those violent temperature swings we talked about?
Right, the freezing nights and blistering days.
Exactly. The coat traps heat during the freezing nights and protects the skin from the searing sun during the day. And the texture is actually key. The silkiness historically helped prevent dirt and debris from causing impenetrable mats that could lead to, like, severe skin infection.
I noticed in the breed analysis photos, the hair on the dog's face, and particularly this patch along its back, the saddle they call it, is noticeably shorter. It honestly looks like someone took clippers and gave them a stylish haircut just for the show ring.
Yeah, and while breeders do maintain that look today, its origins are purely functional. The shorter hair on the saddle and face is a natural adaptation.
Really? Just natural.
Yeah. Think about it. When you are sprinting at 40 miles an hour, heavy hair on the face obstructs vision, which is literally fatal for a sighthound. Shorter hair on the back reduces aerodynamic drag and prevents the dog from snagging on heavy brush during a chase. Plus, it protected them from the friction of the primitive tack and harnesses the nomadic hunters sometimes used.
But taking that ancient mountain survival gear into a modern suburban park,
Yeah.
I mean, that coat has to act like Velcro for the wilderness.
Oh, the modern reality of grooming this breed is a massive undertaking. If an Afghan hound walks through wet grass or light brush, they pull in burrs, twigs, leaves, and moisture right down to to the skin. You cannot just wipe them off with a towel.
I bet.
They require careful, methodical brushing down to the roots multiple times a week. And if you bathe them, a coat that dents does not air dry safely.
Wait, why not? A golden retriever air dries eventually.
Because of the density and the length, if an Afghan hound is left to air dry, the moisture gets trapped against the skin. This can cause severe matting, hot spots, and really painful fungal infections. They actually require hours of active forced air drying. Owning this coat is just a far bigger, more intense lifestyle commitment than the glamorous photos online suggest.
Which brings up a really fascinating contradiction, I think. You just told me this dog is a 40-mile-per-hour mountain missile.
Yeah.
But our behavioral sources say that indoors, they are famous for being statuesque, aloof couch potatoes that will just sleep for 18 hours a day. How does that make any biological sense?
Right, it's the couch potato paradox. It confuses almost every new Sighthound owner. But biochemically and metabolically, it actually makes perfect sense. Sprinting at absolute top speed requires massive explosive energy. It drains the dog's battery incredibly fast.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, an animal built to chase down gazelles across open ground cannot afford to be bouncing off the living room walls the rest of the day. Conserving energy between those explosive bursts is a highly efficient survival strategy.
So if they are just efficiently resting on the couch all day, how does an owner know if a 20-minute walk around the block is actually enough? Because I can imagine taking the dog out for a stroll, it comes inside, sleeps for 6 hours, and the owner thinks, well, great, I tire them out. Is that walk secretly failing this athlete?
It absolutely is failing them. A quiet, resting Afghan hound in the evening isn't necessarily a dog whose exercise needs have been met. It might just be a dog operating on its default energy conservation setting.
Interesting.
Yeah, walking on a 6-foot leash while the owner checks their phone does nothing for this breed's physical or mental health. They need genuine, safe opportunities to stretch their legs and move at absolute top speed.
But that introduces a huge logistical nightmare, doesn't it? If you require absolute top speed running to be healthy, but they also have an uncontrollable, autonomous urge to chase anything that moves half a mile away, how do you actually manage that without disaster? You can't just take them to an open field and then clip the leash.
You absolutely cannot. This is where the daily management of an Afghan hound requires a fundamental shift in how you live. A dog built to spot a hare across a ravine will immediately spot your neighbor's cat or, a squirrel darting across a busy street. And the moment they lock on, that ancient blueprint completely takes over.
The drone is launched.
Exactly. And once launched, they have zero road sense. Secure, high fencing isn't just a recommendation. It is the absolute foundation of keeping this dog alive. Off-leash reliability in open, unfenced areas is basically non-existent.
Wow.
A gate accidentally blown open by the wind or left unlatched by a delivery driver isn't just an inconvenience. It is an immediate, life-threatening emergency because of how much ground this dog can cover in 10 seconds.
So focusing heavily on management, like checking gates, keeping them strictly on leash outside of fenced areas, it isn't a failure of the owner's training abilities. It's just respecting the machinery under the hood. You wouldn't drive a Formula One car through a crowded grocery store parking lot and get mad when it doesn't handle like a minivan.
That's brilliant, yes. You manage the environment to protect the dog from its own instincts. And speaking of protecting the dog, we really have to look at their temperament. Despite that rugged hunting background, they are incredibly sensitive, emotionally complex creatures.
Yeah, the sources mention they are famous for being aloof with strangers. People see them looking regal on the couch and just assume they are snobs.
They are naturally selective and reserved. If someone wants a dog that runs up to every stranger at the farmer's market wagging its tail, begging for pets, the Afghan Hound is the wrong choice.
Definitely.
Outsiders often misread that reserve as unfriendliness, but within their trusted household, the dynamic flips entirely. Owners report that once you are in their inner circle, they display this goofy, clownish, deeply affectionate behavior that the rest of the world never gets to see.
It's like an exclusive club. You have to earn your way in, but that emotional sensitivity must mean they don't handle chaos well, right?
They don't. They are not thick-skinned, rough-and-tumble dogs. Harsh handling, loud shouting, or a chaotic, tense household can genuinely shatter their confidence. They notice really subtle shifts in tone and body language, and if you break their trust, it is incredibly difficult to earn it back.
I want to touch on one more major misconception. Because they look so refined and they are emotionally sensitive, A lot of people assume they are physically fragile, delicate
Which
animals.
is entirely backwards. Underneath all that glamorous silky hair is a machine built of pure torque and power. They have immense rear drive, their hip structure is incredibly muscular, and they have uniquely large, well-cushioned feet.
Like built-in shock absorbers for landing on jagged rock.
Exactly. When an Afghan hound moves, you shouldn't see fragility, you should see immense power. But understanding that lean athletic structure is vital because it drastically alters their healthcare needs. Caring for a sighthound actually requires specialized knowledge.
Let's dig into that because the medical sources flag several unique things, like why do they have such specific feeding requirements compared to a normal dog?
Because you are fueling a high-performance engine, they require high-quality protein to maintain that lean muscle mass without adding unnecessary bulk. Extra weight on a sighthound puts devastating stress on those shock-absorbing joints. You have to feed them for explosive energy, not for padding.
The biggest red flag in the medical breakdown, though, was anesthesia sensitivity. What is the actual mechanism there? Why is putting an Afghan hound under for a routine surgery so much more dangerous than a Labrador?
It comes down to body fat and how drugs are metabolized. Standard anesthetic drugs, like certain barbiturates, are highly lipid-soluble, meaning they are designed to be absorbed into the body's fat stores, which safely pulls the drug out of the bloodstream.
But an Afghan hound has, like, almost zero body fat.
Precisely. Because they lack those fat reserves, a standard dose of anesthesia has nowhere to go. It remains circulating in the bloodstream and just overloads the liver. Yeah, a dose that would safely put a retriever to sleep for an hour could be lethal to a sighthound, or take them days to wake up from. It requires a veterinarian who specifically understands sighthound physiology and uses alternative anesthetic protocols. A knowledgeable vet is just non-negotiable for this breed.
So to bring this entire journey full circle back to you, the listener, the Afghan hound is not a decorative ornament. It is not a velvet couch accessory. It is a highly sensitive, incredibly powerful, independent athlete.
Yeah.
Every single fluffy little puppy stumbling awkwardly across the living room floor today carries the exact same ancient Silk Road blueprint as the fierce mountain hunter we've been talking about.
And if you find yourself wondering if this dog is right for you, the answer doesn't rely on whether you admire their elegance. It relies entirely on your ability to offer secure, high containment, hours of heavy grooming, safe spaces for fast-paced running, and immense patience for trust-based training. You just have to be willing to meet the dog where it is rather than forcing it to be something it's not.
Which leaves us with a lingering, somewhat philosophical thought to chew on. We've just explored how human beings spent thousands of years genetically engineering an animal to make lightning-fast, highly independent life-or-death decisions at 40 miles per hour on the jagged edge of a mountain.
Right.
So, what does it say about us that we now bring that exact same creature into our homes and expect it to seamlessly conform to the heavily regulated, perfectly manicured, and deeply restrictive lifestyle of the modern suburb? When an owner gets frustrated that their Afghan hound won't just sit quietly on the sidewalk while a squirrel runs by, are they really frustrated by the dog? Or are they just experiencing the inevitable clash of two completely different eras of human history, playing out at the end of a 6-foot leash? Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.